Hey governors, I'm not in a Halloween mood yet because I'm not scared enough. I haven't seen enough ghosts or spooky scary skeletons, so I don't know what else to do. Oh wait, I do have an idea of what to talk about to help get me in the mood. I've always wanted to talk about cheese, now is a great chance. Being scared is a common feeling everybody gets once in a while. Whether that be from watching horror movies, playing horror games, or just thinking about their future while still awake at 11 p.m. But it doesn't matter what makes people scared, all that matters is that people do get scared. Sometimes it's over common things such as roller coasters, clowns, or spiders, but other times there are fears that aren't so common or are considered weird. Like apparently Jack Frost 2 Revenge of the Mutant Killer Snowman is considered a horror movie, which means somebody out there is scared of that film, so there are definitely fears that are weird. Now personally, I wouldn't consider myself somebody who got scared very easily. I used to always be the first person to go into haunted houses whenever me and my family used to go to them together. But that doesn't stop me from having fears. The only difference is that my fears aren't really normal or are in some way pretty weird. So I decided today I might as well exploit my weird fears for YouTube views. It's sort of like Stephen King's It, but instead of taking advantage of kids for something absolutely gross in the sewers, it's me taking advantage of my fears for views. I mean, I don't really have the same amount of subscribers as Mr. Beast does, so I can't really take advantage of other people's fears yet like he does, so I might as well do it to myself. So are you guys ready to not be scared? Let's go! So if there's one thing I really like, it's horror movies. Probably the worst sentence I could start a video like this with. But if there's one thing horror movies could be known for, it's how violent they could be. Some of my favorite horror movies just happen to be the Terrifier films, and yep, I know I lost most of my subscribers' respect by saying that. But still, if horror movies in general are known for their violence, then Terrifier is really known for that. Yeah, they're brutal enough where I can't really show any of the kills on screen on YouTube. And it's not like I have a Patreon to point you guys to for an uncensored version. I'm not James A. Denise. But if you guys have seen any of the Terrifier films, you know how cruel Art the Clown can be. It's going to be a bit hard to talk about how disgusting these films are without showing you any of the disgusting scenes. But still, despite how gory they could be, I wasn't too bothered by most of the kills in these films. There are moments in the Terrifier series I feel like could be a bit gross, but I was never really scared by these films, you know? So you wanna know the most ironic thing ever for me? I still have a bit of a fear for things like needles, which are basically absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of pain. I remember when I went to go see the movie Weapons in theaters a couple months ago, I remember personally not being really scared by anything else in the movie, besides the part where Paul gets poked by the needles in James' pockets. The two moments when that happens in the film make me really cringe a bit just saying it out loud and picturing them in my head. I do not like it. So yes, I'm totally fine with the Terrifier movies that have kills in them that require me to show every other shot from these films that aren't the kill scenes out of fear of getting age restricted. But when somebody else gets slightly poked with a needle in another horror film, I don't like thinking about it. The main reason I could think of why the smaller amount of pain scares me more is because I think my brain understands that it's more likely to happen to me than any of the insane things that happen in the Terrifier films. I'm more likely to die in my sleep than me getting $20 million dropped on my doorstep tomorrow. Makes sense, I'm always scared of one of those situations. Yeah, I still do get uncomfortable and scared by bloody kills sometimes. Final Destination Bloodlines have some gnarly kills in it, but personally, I'm more likely to be scared and uncomfortable by smaller amounts of pain instead of the massive gore fest that are films like Terrifier. But still, yeah, I just have a very weird and inconsistent fear about pain and gore. I do hate myself. And speaking of inconsistent fears I have, how about we talk about my weird fear of heights? Now I know the fear of heights is pretty normal, probably one of the most common fears people have besides Minecraft cave noises. But my fear of heights is somehow even more inconsistent than my upload schedule. So I've been to New York City before and I've done great and fun things there, like eating McDonald's and a Chick-fil-A. But being on the top floor of the Empire State Building was a close 27th place for me of the favorite things I've done in New York. And I know after saying I have a slight fear of heights, you may think me admitting I've been on the top of the Empire State Building would be an absolute nightmare for me. But honestly no, I actually loved it, it was pretty fun. I'm so confused. But if I was fine on being on top of the Empire State Building and looking down on New York from that height, then you may be wondering how I even have a type of fear of heights to begin with. Well, I remember one time in high school, me and a group of my friends were going somewhere that required us to go up a ladder to get there. You could probably guess what the issue was for me. I guess the reason I was scared of being on the ladder compared to the Empire State Building was that the Empire State Building had a ton of protection which the ladder did not have. I guess it does make sense. The Empire learned how to protect people in it after what happened to that girl and the monkey. But that still doesn't change the fact that I couldn't have been more calm on the Empire State Building, a building that's over 1,000 feet, while I was scared out of my mind on a ladder that I couldn't have been more than 3 times as tall as me. Yeah, I don't really know why I have the fear sometimes and don't other times. It's weird, but who knows? But hey, I at least know my intelligence is so small that no matter how scared of heights I am, if I was on my IQ, there's no chance I'm falling off that thing. That joke was garbage, I'm sorry. So how about now, instead of talking about fears that could be inconsistent for me, we could talk about maybe more fears from my childhood. Being fair, I still ever so slightly have these fears today, but when I was a kid, they were significantly worse. So first off, let's talk about the thing I would consider my first ever fear, and that's of people's fingernails just falling off. And no, I don't mean just the white part, I mean the entire nail. For you, I do promise to keep the gross descriptions to as little as possible. I'm not going to go into any detail that isn't just talking about fingernails falling off, but if you do feel uncomfortable with me talking about that in any way possible, feel free to skip to this time zone on screen. Okay, you're still with me? Good. So I know a fear like that must seem like it must come from some tragic event from my childhood that must have given me that fear, but no, it was a lot more innocent than that. It's not like me having a fear of olives or something. But when I was a kid, every year, I would watch the Pee-wee's Playhouse Christmas special. Yes, we're talking about a Christmas special in October. Close enough. Welcome back, Nightmare Before Christmas. But for real, Pee-wee's Playhouse Christmas special played a special place in my childhood around Christmas. But sadly, it gave me more than just fond memories, it gave me memories that scarred me. Of course, because we're talking about a Christmas special, the characters give each other gifts throughout the special. And at one point, Pee-wee gives Reba the mail lady press-on nails. Now the problem with this is that I was a dumb child and didn't understand what push-on nails were. So I took the scene as Pee-wee giving Reba new nails because they will eventually fall off or something, which is a very gross sight for me to think about for very fair reasons. So basically, I was a dumb enough kid where I made up the grossest possible option for just a simple Christmas present. Thank you, dumb me. I have talked to people about this fear before, and they said it was reasonable, but I don't know. I think I just think of it as silly because I got it from the same series that had Morpheus from The Matrix dressed up in a cowboy costume. Still, this isn't a fear I really have to deal with besides weird thoughts sometimes. There obviously isn't many times in my life where my nails have fallen off my fingers, but I will still never forgive Pee Wee Herman for indirectly giving dumb baby me stupid ideas. Now, for a fear from my childhood I didn't even remember having until very recently. So you all have been to a mall before, right? And of course, when there's multiple levels of a mall, there's normally an elevator or escalators going up and down to bring you up there. But that's where my problem starts. My weird fear involving these were just downwards escalators, and yes, I am dead serious right now. Well, this fear was mainly just getting on downwards escalators, but it's easier to just shorten it down to downwards escalators. Sort of like how instead of just saying DGB, people just say unfunny. But yes, I am dead serious. When I was young, I had an ever so slight fear of getting onto downwards escalators. Now, upwards escalators, those are fine, but the ones that are going down, no thank you, sir. Now, you may be wondering why this was even a fear I had. It seems so stupid. And that's because it is, but... So my local mall had a restaurant in it that I always went to. And of course, whenever I went, I got a food and drink, right? Normal stuff. But that was on the second floor. So whenever I had to go downstairs with food and drink in my hand, I couldn't hold on to the handrails. That caused young me to be absolutely terrified of downwards escalators sometimes. I have distinct memories of my mom trying to convince me to go down the escalator, but me just being too scared to get on. And I wish I buried those memories in the back of my mind like the other types of things I don't like thinking about at 2 a.m. Still, I was genuinely scared of getting on downwards escalators as a kid, and I still do sometimes get ever so slightly freaked out when I have to go down one, just because of those memories. But let's just ignore that. You may have noticed that I haven't really attempted that many jokes in this section like I normally do, but that's where you're wrong. You see, the fact that I even had this fear at one point is the entire joke. Please laugh. I probably should have saved this one for last because it's probably the dumbest fear in this video. But instead, the final thing I decided to talk about today will be a film that scared me as a child. The only limit I decided to give myself when I wanted to talk about a film that scared me when I was young for this video was that the film couldn't be a horror film. The thing I talked about had to be a weird movie I am or was scared of that wasn't even trying to be scary. If I did allow myself to talk about horror movies though, I would be talking about As Above So Below because I don't know what it was with that film, but that just horrified me when I watched it for the first time a couple months ago. Probably because it took place in Paris. So since we're talking about a film from my childhood that isn't a horror film, what could possibly be the film that scared me so badly? Well, you'll be scared that it isn't something like Mr. Popper's Penguins. Instead, my weird fear came from the Gumby movie out of all films. Yeah, this isn't gonna be a bit. Time for an explanation. So I have sort of vague memories of being a fan of the stop-motion character Gumby as a kid, that green humanoid clay character that can change his body in a multitude of ways. And eventually, Gumby would get a film because he can, I guess. I don't know why I remember this, but I have pretty distinct memories of one of the scenes in this movie scaring me, where a couple of the characters get stuck together on a ball for some reason, and that really made me uncomfortable when I was young. I don't know whether it was because of them being fused together yet still being alive, like some weird form of body horror, or something else, but I was really uncomfortable by the scene. And I barely even remember this film throughout my life, but one of the very few things that did stuck with me throughout my life was this small segment that isn't even really that important to the rest of the plot. This small scene that wasn't at all made to be intentionally scary ended up scaring me, and I think it's only fair to say this is probably the dumbest thing I could have ever been scared by. But to be fair, kids can and will be scared of anything. They're probably the people who are scared of Jack Frost too! But yes, if my mom ever says I was a brave kid growing up, just remember that I was scared of things like a very select moment from the Gumby movie that happens for like 5 seconds in the overall film. That's all I really have to talk about today. I've already embarrassed myself enough by talking about these films, but hey, at least I got the watch hours from you watching this far. I don't have much of a thesis statement for this video, I just wanted to get something out of my fears, and if I couldn't get them out of screaming at dumb horror movies, then a YouTube video works too. Just please keep your comments bullying me to the maximum. I still think it's funny since, like I mentioned earlier, I do watch a ton of horror movies, but I can't even imagine how I got into them originally when the things that scared me when I was young included things like getting on downwards escalators. So I don't know how young me would ever handle the Blair Witch Project. So I'm off to go to watch the Gumby movie at a very weird height. I hope you all enjoyed this video and have a great day. Hey DGB! Hey guy that looks and sounds exactly like me, what's up? Are you in the Halloween spirit yet? Yeah, I'd say I am. That's why I made this video. Why do you ask? Because Halloween's only in 1 week. Do you have any video ideas for it yet? Huh, not really. Maybe I could do something else relating to dumb old scary things. Like creepypastas or internet RNGs? Maybe not. I may have another spooky idea for Halloween.